The millionaire returned home unexpectedly. His employee whispered, "Discover this life-changing reunion." Jack Thompson stepped out of his sleek black SUV, a stark contrast to the humble picket fences and maple trees that lined Maplewood streets. He took a deep breath, and the air felt foreign yet intoxicating. The memories of his childhood flooded back, but they danced in shadows, taunting him with a twinge of longing. The boy who once roamed these roads was now a lost millionaire, who had chased wealth so fervently he had lost sight of himself. Every step he took seemed heavier than the last. Familiar storefronts stared at him like old friends who had forgotten his name. Jack could still see himself shooting hoops on the cracked pavement of Maplewood Park, laughing with friends who had nothing but each other. The laughter had faded, and the joy found in simplicity was now buried beneath layers of gilded isolation. He turned towards the local community center, a beacon of hope in a town that hadn't changed much since he left. As he pushed the door open, the scent of wood polish and chalk filled his lungs. A warmth enveloped him as he approached the front desk, where Maria sat. Her eyes sparkled with recognition, and for the first time, Jack felt a flicker of connection. She had once been a girl who would cheer him on in games and share dreams on warm summer nights. Now, she spoke passionately about starting an after-school program for children in need, her purpose radiating from her like a sunbeam, infecting him with hope. "Jack," she said, her voice steady yet delicate, "we're trying to create a safe space for kids to learn and play. They deserve a chance to thrive, like we did." Those words settled deep into his heart, igniting a forgotten fire. With every detail she shared, he remembered the thrill of the game, the shared laughter and friendship. Money didn't buy happiness. It bought barriers, and in that moment, he wanted to break them down. As Jack volunteered to help, he was confronted with stark realities. Families lined up for food, mothers working late shifts, children longing for attention, and he, once a king of excess, realized his wealth was a mirage. The memories of playing basketball now felt bittersweet, haunted by guilt. He could have used his fortune for good, but he hadn't. It was then he felt the unanswered weight of childhood regrets creeping into his thoughts, amplified by the struggles of those he once shared these streets with. Then came the news that his estranged father would be in town looking for reconciliation. The man who had taught him that money was everything now loomed like a specter of his past. Jack found himself torn between the echoes of the boy he was and the man he'd never wanted to become. When his father appeared at the community center, the room thick with tension, questions hung heavy in the air. At a crowded local meeting, the atmosphere crackled with frustration. Jack fidgeted, facing a sea of glaring eyes. "What do you want, Jack?" A mother stood up and shouted, her voice trembling. "You think you can just walk back in and fix everything with your money? What do you really want?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then, Maria stepped forward, her voice cut through the heaviness. "Jack, are you here to help us, or just to save yourself?" The raw honesty in her question gripped his heart. He stood before the community, the weight of his choices crashing down. Would he fight for authenticity, or slip back into the comfortable but hollow embrace of wealth? With all eyes on him, the future hung in the balance, and he knew his decision could change everything. Jack paused, every heartbeat reverberating in his ears. The question Maria posed felt like a mirror, and for the first time, he couldn't look away. The community's angry glares pierced through his carefully constructed armor. Wealthy, untouchable, and free from responsibility. But inside he felt adrift. He began, the words catching in his throat. Silence enveloped the room, and he could sense the impatience, the skepticism. A cacophony of emotions swirled within him. If he stepped forward now, would he be just another rich man throwing money at problems? Or could he actually make a change, connect with the people he had distanced himself from? As he cleared his throat, the memories flooded back once again. Friends standing side by side, sharing comic books and dreams. How had he let time erase those precious moments? "Look, I know I haven't been around," Jack finally said, as his honesty broke free. I took the easy way out. I became someone I didn't want to be." The gasps in the crowd felt like knives, but he pressed on. "I left Maplewood to chase money and success, thinking it would fill the void inside me. But I found out that I was lonely. It feels empty. I want to help." He let the plea hang in the air. A hush fell over the room, but the tension hadn't dissipated. Jack's gaze landed on Maria, her expression softening, urging him to continue. "I want to help in ways that matter. Let me be a part of this community again, and let's build something together." There was a moment of hesitation before a few heads nodded. "Talk is cheap," yelled another voice from the back, a man with tired eyes but fierce determination. "What are you offering? A check or your heart?" Jack felt the challenge wash over him. "I don't want to throw money at you. I want to figure out what we can build together. I want to listen. I want to learn." After saying it, he felt a weight lift from his chest. At last, there was a flicker of connection, perhaps acceptance. The crowd appeared to relax, their defensiveness melting just a notch. Maria stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "If you truly mean that, then we have a lot of work to do. This community needs people who care, not just funds." Jack nodded, feeling energized by her words. It became clear. This was a chance to reconnect, to rebuild, and to heal. But it was also the beginning of something daunting. The old wounds in the community were deep, and gaining their trust would be no small feat. As the meeting wrapped up, Jack felt a new resolve blooming inside him. Later, when he stepped outside, the sky was painted in strokes of orange and pink, a sight more beautiful than any view from his penthouse. "I can do this," he whispered softly to himself. But doubt lingered in the back of his mind. He recalled the strained relationship with his father, lingering like a storm cloud above him. Had he walked away from one issue only to run headfirst into another? It was clear that the journey ahead would be riddled with challenges. He wanted to forge connections with old friends and make amends with his father. Maybe even learn what it meant to be part of a family again. As he turned to make his way home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was teetering on the edge of a pivotal moment in his life. Both the weight of his past and the possibility of redemption loomed overhead. He took a deep breath, standing at the crossroads, feeling alive for the first time in years. Would he have the strength to meet the challenges waiting just ahead? Would he finally be the man he was meant to become? Tomorrow's meeting would change everything, and he needed to be ready. Jack woke up the next morning, the sun cutting through the curtains like a knife, and he jumped out of bed, more anxious than ever. Today was the day of his next meeting with the community. His palms felt clammy, and a knot twisted in his stomach. He washed his face, willing the doubts away as cold water splashed against his skin. He dressed quickly, throwing on a simple sweatshirt and jeans. There was no need for pretense. Today he wanted to keep it real, just as he had promised the night before. The weight of expectations hung heavily on him, and he wondered if showing up was even enough. On his way to the community center, memories of rusty bikes, summer festivals, and laughter echoed in his mind, paired with a deep sense of loss. He had to remind himself that this was about connection. He wasn't just looking to help. He was looking to reconnect with the essence of who he was. When he arrived, the crowd was gathered in the parking lot, larger than the night before. Jack's heart raced. He scanned the faces, searching for familiar ones. Maria stood at the forefront, her eyes bright, encouraging him with a slight nod. He worked his way through the crowd, and each face told a different story of struggle, patience, and resilience. He felt like a visitor in a kingdom he once ruled. "Thanks for coming back, Jack," Maria said as he reached her. There was sincerity in her tone, but beneath it lingered an expectation he couldn't ignore. It means a lot to us. I want to do more than just come back, he stumbled, unsure of how to start. I want to build a community, not just write a check. The crowd shifted slightly, some nodding, but skepticism lingered like old dust. The man from yesterday stepped forward, face taut with cautious hope. What does that look like, Jack? How do we know you're not just another outsider looking to feel good about himself? Jack took a deep breath, locking eyes with the man. I don't have all the answers. I think that's part of this process. I need to hear your needs and listen to your stories. I need to understand what has kept you running for so long. As he spoke, the crowd lost some of its tension. Conversations sparked, and he could sense the beginnings of a dialogue. He felt the initial walls starting to crumble. Let's create a team, Jack continued. Together we can figure out where to start, be it building a youth center, a community garden, or even workshops to share skills. I want you all involved. I can't do this alone. His words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Voices murmured and shared glances, weighing Jack's sincerity. Maria finally broke the silence. That's the spirit we need. This is not just about one person. This is about many voices coming together. A woman stepped forward, her expression cautious yet intrigued. What's your story, Jack? Why now? Why us? He hesitated, feeling exposed. But if he was going to make this work, he had to share. I lost my way. Chasing success made me forget what mattered. I thought wealth was everything, but I've learned the hard way that connection and authenticity are what really fill that void inside. Jack noticed a few heads nodding in understanding. The weight of vulnerability created a fragile bond between him and the crowd. Could this be the start of something transformative? Suddenly, a young boy tugged at his sleeve, looking up at him with wide eyes. Will you really help us? No one else seems to care. Jack knelt down, bringing himself to eye level. I really want to. I promise you that. Something shifted in the atmosphere. A flicker of hope ignited. The community, worn and weary, began to warm to the idea of rebuilding together. The energy in the air became electric. Just then, his phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him back to the present. A message from his father flashed across the screen. We need to talk. Jack's heart sank. The weight of this distraction threatened to pull him back into shadows of uncertainty. He had come to face one battle and now another was looming, demanding his attention. Just when he thought his path was clear, the roads ahead became tangled once again. Would he find his place in Maplewood and reconcile with his father? Jack felt the weight of his father's message press down on him like an anchor. Until now, he had been focused on his purpose, his community. But now old wounds resurfaced like a distant storm rolling in. The vibrant energy surrounding him faded, replaced by the familiar tension that came with thoughts of family, disappointment, and regret. Hey, Jack, you with us? Maria's voice broke through his spiral of anxiety. He blinked, realizing everyone was looking at him, waiting for more. Sorry, yeah, just... My dad wants to talk. A murmur spread through the crowd. Jack could see it in their eyes, the same curiosity that made him feel an unwelcome pressure mounting. What do you want to do? One man asked. Talk to him now, or stick around? Jack hesitated. Did he even know what he wanted? The community felt like a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty, grounding him. But the thought of answering to his father, a man who had never truly understood him, gnawed at his resolve. I think I should stay, he replied finally, his voice steadier than he felt. I owe it to you all to see where this goes. Encouragement flickered like static in the air. That's the right choice, a woman with silver hair said. Your heart is here. The crowd started to lean in, and an idea sparked within Jack. What if we share our stories, right here, right now? He glanced around. Nervous faces began to brighten with intrigue. This isn't just about me. Everyone has something to bring to the table. If we each take a moment to speak, we can start to build trust together. Maria nodded vigorously, her eyes shining. I love that idea. Let's go in a circle. Share what we hope to change, what we wish. They found a spot on the grass, forming a loose circle around Jack. One by one, they began to share. A young mother spoke about wanting to feel safe in her neighborhood. An elderly man shared tales of a thriving community garden lost to neglect. The stories poured out, raw and heartfelt, a wave crashing over them of shared dreams and struggles. Jack listened intently, his heart swelling. Each story dug deeper into the essence of what it meant to be a part of something larger than himself. Vulnerabilities were stripped bare, and the connection grew stronger with each passing moment. Then came a quieter voice from a teenage girl perched on the edge of the circle. Can we have a space where we don't feel alone? Where we can just be? Her words hit Jack like a thunderbolt. That's what I want too. A place where we support and uplift each other. A family, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Let's make our own version of home, no matter what's happening outside. As the sunlight danced through the trees overhead, a sense of joy lit up the faces around him. It felt like hope was being cradled gently between them. A fragile possibility that nothing could shake. But in the back of his mind, his phone buzzed persistently, demanding attention, pulling him back to the ongoing chaos he left behind. He felt torn, caught in a push and pull that guided him between two worlds. What if his father's call would disrupt everything he was trying to create here? Yet, with each shared hope, Jack felt empowered, and doubt began to fade in the light of their solidarity. As laughter erupted over a story about a prank that went sideways from one of the men, Jack's chest tightened. How could he leave this gathering? How could he walk away when he felt so connected, yet so conflicted? Jack took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the community surround him. He knew one thing for sure. If he didn't address that looming shadow, it would always remain a part of his journey. As he wrestled with his thoughts, the sounds of joy around him highlighted a painful tension yet to be resolved. Could he truly find a way to bridge those two worlds when both tugged at his heart in such opposing directions? And just as he contemplated his next move, his phone buzzed again. He glanced down. A new message blinked ominously on the screen. You will regret it if we put this off any longer. A chill raced down his spine. What was waiting for him on the other side of this decision? Jack felt his stomach drop as the words swirled in his mind. He could sense the weight of everyone's expectations pressing in. Sitting there with his community felt like a promise he never wanted to break. Yet here was a reminder of an old life awaiting a response, and it tore at his heart. He rubbed the back of his neck, trying to shake off the tension. The laughter around him faded momentarily. Only the drumming of his heart remained, loud and persistent like an alarm. What kind of regrets? He wondered, biting his lip. Maria noticed his shift. Jack? You okay? She asked, her voice laced with concern. Yeah. Just a lot on my mind. He forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Do you need to go? Someone chimed in. Jack knew they sensed his conflict. It hung heavy in the air, palpable and chilling. He glanced at the group, their faces open and inviting. They didn't just want his presence. They needed his commitment. No, I'm here. We're building something together, he said, conviction finally breaking through the fog of uncertainty. As the next person shared their story, a man recounting his struggles with addiction and the bridges he was rebuilding, Jack felt the threads of camaraderie tightening. Each tale painted a picture of resilience, and it stirred something deep within him. A fire that struggled to remain lit, just like the community itself. He took a shaky breath. "We can dig deeper," he said, finding his voice. "If these stories connect us, maybe we can also share our fears. What haunts us? Because I know that weight all too well." They fell quiet, absorbing his words. Maria seemed to gleam with understanding, her nod saying she felt this too. "I'll start," Jack continued, diving in. "I worry that my father and his expectations are always going to overshadow me. I've tried escaping that life, but sometimes I feel like it catches up, a ghost creeping back in." Several heads nodded, understanding etched on their faces. Jack felt lighter, almost like he was releasing a part of himself into safe hands. One by one, others began to spill their fears. The fear of failure, the fear of being unheard, the fear of letting down those they loved. A young boy talked about feeling alone at school, while an older woman shared her longing for lost friendships. In those moments, Jack felt the power of vulnerability as they moved from separate lives to a united front. But just as a wave of connection washed over them, a bittersweet tone crept back in with the looming message still echoing in Jack's mind. All the warmth of shared experiences couldn't fully heal the ache of a past that refused to stay buried. His phone buzzed again, waking him from the collective dream they had created. This time, it was a call. The screen lit up. It was his father's name glaring back at him, demanding attention like an urgent siren. "Excuse me, I need to take this." The words tumbled out before he could think twice. He stood, every eye in the circle following him, unspoken questions following him like a shadow. As he moved away, the laughter faded, the warmth dimmed, leaving him standing on the precipice of two worlds. This path was familiar, one he thought he had outrun. He swiped to answer, and before he could gather himself, the stern voice on the other end cut through the air, jagged and demanding. "We need to talk, Jack. It's time you returned home." His heart raced, uncertainty flooding his veins. What did home even mean anymore when he felt at home surrounded by the laughter and stories of his community? He felt that tug once more, a pull between obligation and the newfound sanctuary he was discovering. But as the conversation continued, the urgency in his father's tone began to seep through. What crucial revelation awaited him in the very place he had fled? With an ominous weight pulling him back, Jack knew the storm was far from over, and he was right in the eye of it. Jack's breath quickened, and the words hung in the air like smoke. He could feel the cool evening breeze brushing against his skin, but it was not enough to shift the warmth of nostalgia pulsing through him. His father's voice, authoritative as ever, jolted him back to reality. "Jack, we agreed it was time for you to take on more responsibility. There's no reason to put this off any longer. The family business needs you." The weight of those words pressed against him, a familiar and unwelcome embrace. Jack glanced back at the circle of friends he had just begun to share himself with, their faces a canvas of support and love. That warmth felt so different from the cold expectations emanating from his father. "Dad, I have commitments here. I'm building something important," he managed to say, the words feeling strange even as they left his lips. "Important? These sessions? They won't pay the bills." His father shot back sharply, the disdain evident in his tone. "You need to think of your future, your legacy." Jack rubbed a hand over his face, the mounting frustration boiling inside him. "This is my legacy too. This community, these people, they need me. I'm not everything you want me to be, but I'm becoming who I am." A pause engulfed the conversation, nothing but silence stretching between them. Deep down, Jack knew he stood at a crossroad. One route led to the ambitious, secure life his father envisioned for him. Money, status, approval. The other, painfully fragile, was the unknown life he was crafting out of vulnerability and connection. As Jack wrestled with those emotions, a memory flickered to life. His younger self, clutching a baseball glove, waiting for his father to show up. Waiting and waiting. But his father never came. That heartache still echoed, a reminder of what he was escaping. "Jack, I'm not going to keep repeating myself," his father said, the impatience seeping into his words. "Just say you'll come home, and we can discuss this further." Suddenly, anger burned in Jack's chest. Why was he still trying to appease someone who never considered his own dreams? "I don't know if I can come back," Jack replied, a tremor lacing each word. "Not now, not like this." His father let out an exasperated sigh. "You will regret this later, trust me. Just think it over." With that, the call ended. Jack stared at the screen, feeling the weight of those final words settle heavily in his chest. Regret? The very thought twisted something inside him. His feet carried him back to the group, but his mind was still racing. He caught Maria's eye, her expression a curious mixture of concern and support. "Everything okay?" she asked softly, stepping closer. His heart clenched, and suddenly the tears he'd held at bay threatened to spill over. "I'm not sure," he admitted, the words tasting both liberating and terrifying. As he settled back into the circle, he felt the warmth seep into his bones again. The laughter swelled like a gentle tide, pulling him up from the depths of doubt. "I just received some bad news, but it's nothing I can't handle. We've all got ghosts, right?" He tried to smile, but he wasn't sure it reached his eyes this time. The group began to share more of their stories, but he felt distant, grappling with the implications of returning home and abandoning what felt like his foundation. He didn't want to lose this bond they had built. This feels like family. Then an unsettling thought crossed his mind. Was he truly strong enough to face his past, or would it swallow him whole? "Jack, you've got this," Maria whispered, her hand resting on his shoulder, grounding him momentarily. All at once, the warmth of friendship surged through him, a reminder that he wasn't as alone as he felt. Still, the question echoed in the back of his mind. Who was Jack, really? The ones who vowed to love him whether he succeeded or failed, or the son locked in perpetual pursuit of approval? With that weight on his chest, Jack looked at the faces around him. Hope flickered dimly, and desperation intertwined with determination. The community needed him, but could he truly relinquish the shackles of the past? As the laughter faded and seriousness settled back in, a new realization dawned on him, teasing at the edges of clarity. Whatever happened next could change everything, if he only dared to step into the unknown. Can I truly build the life I want while facing the past? He questioned silently, feeling the ground shift beneath him. The path ahead was foggy, but maybe the answer lay somewhere in the heart of this community. Would he find the courage to confront it? The sound of laughter faded as Jack sat back in the circle, feeling the weight of the moment settle heavily on him. Thoughts swirled in his head, spinning between his father's demands and the warmth of his friends surrounding him. Was he really willing to let go of this? Could he allow the fear of his past to dictate his future? "Hey, you all right?" Ben's voice cut through the chaos in his mind, drawing Jack back to the present. Ben leaned closer, his brow furrowed with concern. Jack managed a nod, but inside, a storm brewed. "Just thinking," he replied, not wanting to dive into the complicated emotions roiling within him. "Thinking about what?" Maria interjected, her eyes searching his face for the answers hidden behind his silence. It felt like a spotlight was shining on him. Jack took a deep breath, aware that each breath felt heavy. He gestured vaguely. "Just family stuff. You know how it is." Ben chuckled softly, with a knowing glance exchanged between him and Maria. "Yeah, family stuff can be a real heavy load." Jack appreciated their efforts to lighten the mood, but he felt more like a ghost than a participant. Suddenly, the barriers he'd built around his heart felt fragile, liable to crack at any moment. The pressure threatened to squeeze him out of the group. As they continued talking, Jack's mind drifted again. Memories of family dinners turned tense by his father's failed expectations flashed before him. He could see his father's stern face in the corner, waiting for him to falter. It was suffocating. "Jack, look." Maria's voice broke him from his spiral. "If you're feeling uneasy about anything, you can share. We're all here for you." Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket, but the fear of exposing too much made him hesitate. "I appreciate it, really," he said, swallowing hard. I'm not sure how much I want to share tonight. What if we turn this around? Let's share something positive," suggested Ben. "Who's made a difference in your life?" The question hung in the air, like an invitation to pull back the curtain of his heart. For a moment, he considered it, thought of all the faces that had supported him. Yet, amongst the names, only one shone brightly. Lane, his mentor, who'd taught him the value of community and connection. Lane, he, taught me a lot about embracing who you are, even when it's hard, Jack finally admitted. When I was falling apart, he showed me that vulnerability is actually strength. Maria and Ben nodded thoughtfully, their faces reflecting a mix of admiration and understanding. Suddenly, Jack felt a trickle of hope seep in through the doubt. Could it be that the community he had grown to love might help him face the shadows of his past? Maybe he wasn't alone in this battle after all. Speaking of people, did you all hear about Mary's fundraiser next month? Maria chimed in, her excitement lighting up the atmosphere. It's going to be huge. We should all get involved. A wave of energy jolted through the group as they discussed details, their enthusiasm rekindling Jack's spirit. But deep down, he still felt the giant question looming like an unwelcome guest. Would joining in the future make him forget the anguish of his childhood? Are we ready for this? Jack voiced his inner turmoil. Can we really face everything that's coming against us? The laughter became muted, and the gravity of his question weighed on the group. For a brief moment, the air turned thick with contemplation, as if each person was searching for the right words to reassure him. Then, Maria broke the silence, her voice steady. Jack, sometimes it's okay to be scared. We all are. But together we can tackle anything. Even the past. Jack's heart swelled at the notion. In that moment, he felt understood and accepted, like he had allies in this battle. The warmth of their presence surrounded him, igniting a flicker of belief within. But even as those sparks began to glow, he couldn't shake the doubt that nagged at him. What if the past was more powerful than the future he wished to build? As the laughter and chatter resumed, Jack looked around, feeling both hope and uncertainty entwined in an embrace. Could this community truly be the answer to my fears? He wondered, and a wave of anticipation surged through him. Would he find the courage to confront his past, or would it define him forever? With that question swirling in his mind, Jack felt the ground beneath him shift yet again. The journey was only just beginning, and he was terrified but ready to step forward. Would this community be enough to carry him through? Jack leaned back in his chair and scanned the faces of his friends, the flickering light from the campfire casting warm shadows on their features. The sounds of laughter spilled into the night, but they felt distant, like echoes of a life he longed to embrace but feared to claim. Hey, how about we share something we've all learned this year? Ben broke in, his eyes sparkling with good-natured mischief. Something we didn't expect? Jack watched as Maria nodded eagerly, her curls bouncing with excitement. Yeah, I'd love to hear what everyone's learned or realized. The energy in the group shifted as each person took a turn, sharing bits of wisdom and experiences, stitches in the fabric of their lives. Ben shared how he learned to stand up for himself at work. Maria spoke about the power of letting go of toxic friendships. Jack felt a mix of warmth and anxiety. Their stories were like stepping stones leading him to a place he couldn't yet reach. When it was Jack's turn, he hesitated. The silent expectations felt enormous. Would what he said sound weak? Or worse, would they pity him? but he realized they'd all opened up. He owed it to them, and maybe to himself, to be truthful. I guess what I learned this year is to recognize that I'm not alone in my struggles, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I've always kept my fears bottled up, feeling as if they defined me. But I'm starting to see that I can share the load. Maria leaned forward, her eyes filled with empathy. That's huge, Jack. It's a big deal to let others in. Jack wrapped his arms around his knees. It's just hard. I don't want the past to be an anchor. Sometimes it feels heavy, like I'm carrying around a piece of lead. The group nodded in understanding. Jack could feel their support surrounding him, but he also felt the tight coil of worry in his stomach. The weight of his father's expectations loomed large over him, inner voices still whispering doubts about his worth. What about you, Lane? What's one thing you learned? Jack blurted, suddenly focused on his mentor, who had been quietly observing the exchange. Lane smiled, his presence steady and reassuring. Life isn't just about the successes we achieve. Sometimes it's in vulnerability that we find our greatest strength. Life can throw us curveballs, but it's how we respond that truly matters. I learned that being open is an act of bravery. As Lane spoke, Jack felt a swell of hope. Could his mentor's wisdom help guide him? The shadows of doubt began to flicker, replaced by a yearning brightness that radiated through the group. Together we are all stronger, Maria piped in, her voice buoyant. In each other's stories are pieces of our own. Jack looked at his friends, really looked at them. He saw the support, the shared struggles, the collective resolve. Maybe there was a path through this, one paved with companionship and trust, a connection he could make without fear. Yet, with the sense of unity came a flash of fear. How vulnerable was he willing to be? As the fire crackled and the conversation flowed into new territories, his heart raced. What if unveiling his past could erase the shadows? Do you think we could really stand up to our past together? Jack asked, the tremor in his voice unmistakable. Absolutely, Lane replied, leaning forward. It's all about stepping into the light. But you have to want it for yourself, too. Jack swallowed hard, grappling with the weight of those words. His fingers traced the wooden arm of the chair, grounding him for a moment. Could he summon the courage to share his truth? To face the haunting memories of his childhood without fear? As the night drew on and laughter filled the air once more, Jack felt an unsettling blend of hope and trepidation coursing through him. He wanted to believe, wanted to feel free. But if he opened up, would he lose control? Or would he finally find his voice amidst the chaos of the past? The flickering flames danced higher, as if anticipating the answer, and with it, the next chapter of his journey awaited. Jack's heart pounded as the fire crackled softly, illuminating the anxious faces of his friends. He felt a swell of something. Was it courage? Or maybe just a desperate yearning to finally break the silence that had cloaked him for so long? The moment stretched on as he gathered the tangled thoughts wrestling within him. Okay, he finally said, his voice steadying as if each word was an anchor, grounding him in the present. I think it's time I shared something more personal. He held eye contact with Lane, who nodded with encouragement. When I was a kid, my dad had this way of making me feel like I had to be perfect, like anything less than that would disappoint him. It messed with my head. I just wanted to be loved for who I am, not for some standard I could never meet. The group fell silent, the warmth of the fire contrasting the chill of vulnerability in the air. Jack continued, feeling a surge of relief mingled with fear, as he shared the stories of long-forgotten days. If I didn't get straight A's or score the winning goal, I'd feel like I failed. And that made me act out. I was always doing something a little reckless just to hear him say he was proud of me. Maria gasped softly, and he could see tears glimmering in her eyes. Jack, I had no idea, she whispered. Lane leaned in closer, his expression one of deep understanding. It's brave to admit that, Jack. Many people carry their burdens alone, thinking they must handle everything without help. But the truth is, those struggles often define the way we see ourselves. Jack felt the weight of those words. He had spent so much time trying to push aside his past, thinking it would make him stronger. Now, sitting here with his friends, he realized it was time to stop hiding behind the mask of indifference. What scares me, he confessed, trembling a little, is that by opening up, I might lose the little control I have left. What if my past defines me in a way I can't come back from? Jack, Ben said gently, understanding your past is just another step in shaping your future. Regrets hold us back, but facing them can set us free. Don't you think this is a chance to rewrite your story? The fire crackled again, the flames dancing higher, as if responding to Jack's turmoil. In that moment, he felt a shift. The panic inside started to dissolve, replaced with something more profound. Acceptance. Maybe you're right, he replied, allowing a small smile to break through. What if I can find strength in my vulnerability? What if facing the stories I've buried will help me step into the light you talked about? He glanced around, hope igniting behind his eyes. Maybe I need to confront my dad, even after all this time. That's a huge step, Lane said, respect filling his tone. But it's your journey to navigate. Just remember, you're not walking it alone. Jack felt a warmth radiating from the group. The laughter and stories they'd shared suddenly felt like a foundation, supporting him as he tried to find his footing. Yet deep within, uncertainty brewed. What if it goes badly? He whispered, his voice small. Then we'll be here for you, no matter what, Maria promised, her sincerity echoing in the night. The shadows of the past flickered in Jack's mind, but now they seemed less daunting, bathed in the glow of camaraderie and trust. As they began to share quieter stories in response, his thoughts still raced. Could he truly embrace this new chapter? Did he have the strength to rewrite his narrative in a way that would honor both his past and his hope for the future? And as the fire burned low, illuminating their faces with flickering warmth, Jack found himself at a crossroads of fear and promise. The weight of his fears still tugged, but now it felt more like an invitation to discover who he could become. As the moon hung high above them, Jack couldn't shake the feeling. Change was just around the corner, waiting for him to take the next step. What if the moment to confront his father was on the horizon? Would he seize it, or would the ghosts of his past imprison him once more? Jack stared into the glowing embers of the fire, feeling a renewed sense of determination pulse through him. Sharing his story had lifted something heavy off his heart, and now, surrounded by his friends, his newfound family, he was starting to believe in the power of vulnerability. He took a deep breath, the cool night air filling his lungs, and resolved to face the looming storm of his father and the expectations that had weighed him down for far too long. I need to talk to my dad, he said suddenly, the words bursting forth with an urgency he hadn't anticipated. The group shifted in their seats, eyebrows raised, their expressions a mixture of surprise and encouragement. That's a really big step, Jack, Lane said, his voice low and steady, as though he fully grasped the gravity of the moment. I know, Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. But it feels like this dark cloud follows me everywhere. Maybe it's time to confront it, to show my dad who I really am. Then let's help you prepare. Maria jumped in, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. We can role-play, talk it out. Jack chuckled nervously at the thought. You'd put me through a practice session before I go into battle, huh? Absolutely, Ben chimed in, laughter brightening the serious atmosphere. Let's get you ready to face the toughest opponent you've ever had, your dad. Jack felt an unfamiliar warmth in the camaraderie surrounding him. Knowing his friends had his back gave him the confidence to push through the uncertainty. Okay, let's do it, Jack said. When's the best time to reach out? The night unfolded into a mix of laughter, serious reflections, and playful banter as they brainstormed strategies for the conversation. Jack could feel the weight of the past loosening with every moment spent with his friends. Their support cultivated a resilience, digging roots deep within him, roots strong enough to withstand any storm. That same night, Jack decided to send a message to his father. "We need to talk." A simple statement, yet it felt monumental. His fingers trembled slightly as he hit send, the familiar fear creeping back. Would he answer? What would be revealed? The next couple of days merged into an anxious blur. Jack was torn between the anticipation of the conversation and the old fears surfacing like ghosts. He leaned into the group, attending meetings at the community center, helping with fundraising for the upcoming program, and diving into heartfelt conversations with the kids who inspired him so deeply. Always, they reminded him of the boy he once was, the boy he desperately wanted to reclaim. Finally, he received a response from his father. "I can meet you at the office tomorrow at noon." The words echoed ominous, but they also filled him with determination. This is it, he thought, heart racing. The next day, as he approached the familiar building, Jack felt the weight of expectations bearing down like a lead blanket. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the strength he had found in his community, in sharing his truth. Walking into the office, he was met with a stark contrast to the warmth he'd come to know. The sterile environment felt suffocating, filled with memories of past conversations, filled with disappointment and judgment. His father sat behind a polished desk, fingers steepled, an all too familiar glint of authority in his glare. "Jack," his father acknowledged, voice even. "Thanks for coming." Jack let out a shaky breath before responding. "Thank you for meeting with me." The tension hung heavy, both in the air and in his chest. "I've been thinking about my life, the choices I've made," he started, finding that anchor of courage within. "I know you wanted me to succeed in the family business, but I took a different path." His father frowned slightly, irritation flashing in his eyes. A different path? By playing at community programs? Jack pressed on, words flowing like water from a broken dam. "Yes, and I'm proud of that. But it's not just playing. I'm trying to make a difference, to connect with the person I used to be." At this, the glimmer of confusion in his father's eyes matched the swirling emotions in Jack's heart. "What you're doing is not how I envisioned a successful life for you." Jack could feel his pulse quickening, memories of childhood fears bubbling to the surface, but he pushed them aside in favor of clarity. "What does success even mean, Dad? To have a high profile? To accumulate wealth? I thought I could find validation that way, but I lost myself in the process." His father regarded him with furrowed brows, like he was trying to assess whether Jack had lost his mind or found a new path. "But Jack, the business could provide for you. Create a legacy. I want a legacy to leave behind based on love, not fear. I want to love myself, to embrace who I am, just like I do with the community." There was silence, filled only by the cadence of Jack's racing heart. His father's eyes softened slightly as he adjusted his posture. Jack's breath caught as the tension began to dissipate, revealing something almost vulnerable in his father's demeanor. "I never meant to make you feel that way," his father finally said, a sincerity cracking through. "I only wanted what I thought was best." Jack could have wept. Hope shimmered in the air between them. "I know you cared, but could we just start again? Will you try to understand me, even if you don't agree with my choices?" His father hesitated, but then nodded slowly, a genuine acknowledgement flickering in his gaze. "Yes, I'll try." In that moment, a door began to crack open. Jack felt the weight of fears lifted off of him, replaced by a fragile but powerful thread of understanding. As they talked about the business and Jack's plans at the community center, something shifted. A newfound respect emerged, and the conversation flowed easily. It was a moment filled with promise, where reconciliation wasn't just a fleeting fantasy, but a tangible reality. By the time he walked out of the office, something profound had shifted. The chains of expectation felt looser, and although the road to fully embracing his identity remained ahead, he wasn't walking it alone. As he stepped outside, the day bathed in sunlight, he couldn't shake the radiant smile creeping across his face. He was finally breaking free from the shadows of his past, ready to embrace both the present and the future. Jack rushed to the community center, eager to share his newfound clarity with Maria, Ben, and Lane. As he arrived, the laughter and chatter wrapped around him warmly. They welcomed him like a long-lost brother, and he felt an electric current of joy pulsing through him. "I did it," he proclaimed breathlessly. "I talked to my dad." "Wow," Maria said, her eyes sparkling with pride. "How did it go?" "It wasn't easy, but I think we might finally understand each other." Cheering erupted from the group, applause filling the air as they surrounded him. They embraced him, and the warmth engulfed him, stitching every piece of his heart back together, thread by thread. Together, they stepped into what was next. The shared journey of trust, healing, and an unwavering belief in the power of community. Jack realized his past was no longer an anchor, but a chapter in a much larger story he was still writing. A story radiant with hope, connection, and the promise of tomorrow. And just like that, with a smile illuminating his face, Jack felt free. The laughter echoed around him, and he was home. He had finally returned, not just to Maplewood, but to himself. Now, he was ready for whatever came next, knowing he didn't have to face any of it alone. What about you? As you navigate through your own journey of healing and connection, remember, you have the power to rewrite your story too. So, if you felt inspired, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement means everything. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let's start a conversation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans know how important it is to support our community. Let's do this together.